Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Scorpio, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of October 2025. I hope you are well and happy incoming birthday season to you. I'm using the Wildwood Tarot for you today. So before we begin, if the reading resonates with you and you would like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's via the first link in the description box below. Alternatively, you could come over to my private community, which is the Order of the Phoenix over on the Circle platform. There you can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost beyond the membership fee. And if you, so that includes things like weekly energy readings. Yes, and if you join at the highest here, you can come participate in the live classes that we run over there, and everything's recorded, so if you can't attend live you can catch up later, and there's quite a body of classes building up there now. So if that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with that link. So let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Scorpio. I have 3 cards for Scorpio, please. Oh, there's the first one. We have the Sun in your recent past, right there. It's a card of Leo. What about current energy for Scorpio, please? Current energy for Scorpio. There's lots of cards flipping. Give me a second. Okay, we have 2. We have the Star and we have the Queen of Pentacles right there. Let's get the last card. What's coming towards Scorpio, please, for October? Thank you. We have the 9 of Swords reversed. I have to say, I've come out in incredible goosebumps all over. So this feels really quite important. Anywho, what do we have? We have Justice at the bottom of the tower. There go the goosebumps again. Ooh, can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. No. Stop waving my arm around at you, but it's goosebumpy as fuck anyway. So we have this Justice card at the bottom of the deck. That's really quite important. It represents the sign of Libra generally, but more specifically it does talk about things, you know, finding some sort of balance, which I would imagine is probably quite a useful thing in times such as these that we live in. It also has, you know, fairly big karmic overtones too. We often see the Justice card come up when we've got some aspect of karmic issues being worked through and resolved, more importantly, or when we have sort of shifts of fate and destiny occurring too. Now there are other cards that I would like to see come out to kind of reinforce that message there. But underpinning everything is this idea of a balance that is now beginning to occur, and you know that this 9 of Swords coming out in the reverse actually is quite a good indicator of balance appearing somewhere. Now you have 2 major arcana cards, like I said, Leo and Aquarius, which is quite interesting because they're both fixed signs. And I think all of the fixed signs are getting a bit of a battering at the moment. You know, when you live in chaotic times, when everything is breaking down and being rebuilt and all that kind of thing, there's not a lot of space for what the fixed signs do best. And it's almost like all of the fixed signs have had to, in the most... They've had to concentrate on reinventing themselves. You know, and that includes you, Scorpio. So let's have a look and see why the Sun is here on the floor as usual. Let's have a look. So we've got the Hanged Man reversed, which is nice, and it's being crossed with the Emperor, so we've got more major arcana energy. Tell me about the Star and the Queen of Pentacles. We have the Magician. We have the 3 of Wands. Let's get one more for that. We've got the 8 of Swords. And then for the 9 of Swords reversed, we have the Page of Cups and the Queen of Wands. Empress now at the bottom of the deck. Do you know what's really interesting about this, Scorpio, is that you're not here. Scorpio is one of those signs that can be relied on, I think, almost universally to show up in their own readings. I think Leo does that a lot too. I think maybe Taurus trailing a close third. But you're not here, except you are here. And what do I mean by that? Well, I feel like the key to it all is actually in the Magician card. Now, we're going to talk about all of the cards that are on the table, but this card that is acting as a clarifier, it's energy that's sitting beneath the radar, if you will, sub rosa. The Magician is so powerful because the Magician can utilize all of the elements. We see them depicted here on the card. We've got the Ace of Swords, Ace of Pentacles, Ace of Wands, and the Ace of Cups. And she sat in the centre of them. Now, there's never going to be a problem with Scorpio leaning into Scorpio energy, right? You're completely imbued by it. But sometimes looking out of that pit, because it can feel like a pit sometimes, not to me, not to other people, but I think to be a Scorpio is to sometimes be in that space. To be able to look out of that pit and say, well, there's a whole load of other energy out there that I can utilise. It can't help but start the process of powering you up. And when the Magician talks, as it does, about manifestation and the creation of a reality that we ourselves want to live, there's something very, very empowering about that. Now, the other thing to say before we start digging in too much into the cards is that there is a division within the tarot of major and minor arcana. Apologies if you know this already. But the way that I see the major arcana are, these are the forces that are working on us at any given point, right? They are requiring some sort of reaction from us. Or response is probably the better word. And the responses themselves can be found within the minor arcana. The minor arcana kind of govern the day-to-day activities that are ours to control, right? And if we're doing our best work, then what we're doing is we are paying attention to the energy of these big major arcana energies, I guess. And we are changing and evolving and choosing differently in response to those. So you have the Sun, you have the Hangman, you have the Emperor, you have the Star, you have the Magician, and then at the bottom of the deck you have the Empress and you have the Justice card. Both of them sort of indicating Venus, interestingly enough. Venus rules both Taurus and Scorpio, right? Taurus and Libra, my apologies. That's a lot to be fielding. And it's not that the energy is dying off as you come into October, but it feels like it's starting to become more manageable as you get into October. Because it's been very strong over here, and I don't feel like it's overwhelmed you exactly, but I feel like there's been a lot going on, right? And as we move into October, it's putting everything where you can actually do something with it, right? It becomes yours to control now, and you are controlling it, more importantly. So let me get my little stick of selenite here. We start off in your recent past with the Sun, or the Sun of Life as it is known in this deck, right? The Sun is a card of Leo. It represents the energy of the Sun, quite obviously. But it's often associated with joy and positivity. I mean, it covers all things Leo, right? So children quite often come up with this. But not just those children you may have or be surrounded with, but like the nature of the inner child and the source of creativity. It also talks about consciousness. Now, it feels to me like there's something fairly strong has happened within you, Scorpio, in this last wee while. And when we talk about recent past, I mean, we really could be talking about this morning, or we could be talking up to about 6 weeks back from now, right? There's been a big shift in consciousness in you, and everything feels different. Now, this would be important because you're a water sign, and the feelings of any given matter are going to do a lot to influence which way you decide to go in any given matter, right? But it feels like everything's a little lighter. I think you've had more to deal with, but everything feels lighter, right? We've got this Pisces energy here of the Hanged Man, who is himself actually now, not hanging upside down, but apparently kind of waving himself in the air. But the Hanged Man talks about surrender, he talks about submission, talks about sacrifice. When he shows up in the reverse for me, he's not talking about a reversal of that energy, so not surrender, not submission, not sacrifice, but an acknowledgement of the fact that you have been in that state for quite a while now, right? What was voluntarily surrendered to, as per the Hanged Man in the upright, has now achieved the result that the universe was after. It's like permission has been granted for you to get down off the tree. You do not have to voluntarily suspend yourself, in an act of discomfort to see the world from a different perspective. You have achieved that different perspective. And now, really, to stay on the tree would be to almost miss the point. But I do wonder if there has been a little of that, because the Emperor is here on his side. Now, obviously, we would like to see him in the upright. It's very active, masculine energy. It represents the sign of Aries. And so there is always an idea of initiation where the Emperor is concerned. It's a very basic interpretation of Aries, right? But as Aries energy itself develops, it becomes not necessarily the warrior that is on the front line and hacking and chopping and slaying, but something a little bit more strategic, right? Now, you have an association with Aries on account of the fact that both of your signs were traditionally ruled by Mars. And Pluto was discovered later. Pluto was handed over to Scorpio, right? But the traditional ruler was Mars. And there's almost like a yin-yang division between how martial energy is expressed by you two signs. So with Aries, it's very, outward, hack, chop, slay. With Scorpio, it's more of that yin energy of taking your time, plotting. Actually, the strategy comes in there to the martial energy. The fact that it's showing up on its side means, I feel, that although there's been a big shift of consciousness for you, there has been a bit of a resistance about getting down off the tree. Now, why would the resistance be there? Well, possibly there might have been a little bit of fear about what comes next after this, because, with great power comes great responsibility and all that jazz. And there's definitely something that's upticked for you, and you are aware of it now. So rather than fear, I would say perhaps hesitation about using it to its fullest extent, because with that is going to come a sense of responsibility that maybe you have not felt like you were quite ready to field, So let's just pull another card here. Look at this. Thank you. Ace of Wands. Yeah, like the energy is on the initiation for sure. The push is on the initiation. It's like, Scorpio, you spent enough time cogitating, you've seen enough time, you spent enough time seeing the world from a different perspective. You have this changed consciousness now. It's time to go do something with it. But I don't feel like you quite leapt at it. It would make sense, right? You're a naturally cautious sign, I think. But notice also that we have the Four of Cups at the bottom of the deck. Now, it's Cancer energy right there, and it's an energy that I associate with things like rejection, sensitivity, abandonment issues, this sort of thing, right? There's a way of looking at the Four of Cups to say that it also talks about a certain kind of boredom or ennui. I don't think that really is relevant here in your reading. It's more like, I'm more comfortable working in the dark, and now I am being called to come out into the light. I want to, but I'm not quite ready yet. That's how I'm reading these energies here, right? Almost like that there's been enough time seeing the world from a different perspective, literally 180ing yourself so that you can see things totally differently. But the correlation of what that may mean, the corollary rather of what that may mean hereafter, just just standing back a little bit from that, because it's going to take a great deal of courage, a great deal of bravery, and you know that. Now, it's not that you don't have courage or bravery, Scorpio. I think you do have that in bucket loads, but it's asking of you the one thing that is always going to make you hesitate, and that is push yourself out where you can be seen. The thing is, I don't think that the level of energy that you've got running through you now is going to allow you, I think, to stay in the shadows for very much longer. It's like that there has to be a visible presence of you, and you're kind of working up to it. That's how it feels. I'm working up to it. I'm not resisting it exactly, but I need a bit of a run up at this, because this is not a natural state for me. So when we come into your current energy here, we've got the Star and we've got the Queen of Pentacles, and this is quite an interesting pairing. The Star's the card of Aquarius, like I said, and it speaks to your highest hopes, goals, dreams, aspirations. It can speak to healing. It can speak to profound connection, which I think would be something that would be very interesting to Scorpios naturally anyway. But again, we see this Queen of Pentacles here, like hovering on the threshold of something. We see this continuation of the, the big sun background energy going on here. We can see it here too. Almost like knowing that you've got to get out there, but maybe even feeling pushed by the universe to get out there. Magician. Active creation of one's own existence, the Three of Wands. Yes, it's time to move, it's time to go, it's time to do all these things, and yet still kind of hovering on the precipice. And then we have the Eight of Swords. Gemini energy is actually Jupiter in Gemini, and it talks about the way that we kind of think ourselves into absolute stasis, right? Absolute paralysis. And here's what I find really interesting, Scorpio. I think you've got a very, very clear idea of the reason why you are here now. I think it's been something that's been building for quite a long time, but something that's happened recently has been a breakthrough moment for you. You're like, oh, fuck, I get it. I understand why I'm here now, right? The communication between you and the universe, you and Creator, you and God, you and Source, like whatever your terminology is for it, has gone up a notch. And there's a two-way communication thing going on now, right? Where you've received a great deal of information about what your next moves are, what the point of view is, what you are ultimately here to do. And the biggest barrier at the moment for you is the way that you are thinking about it. Now, the Star can, speak to those things that are on the horizon, right? So just as the Star may be up on the horizon, it is the things that are of the future. And I'm kind of reminded of that, is it Confucius? It is Confucius, right? The journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single step. Well, for you first, got to get down off the tree, right? And then you need a moment to order yourself before you take that first step on the 1,000-mile journey that you're about to go on, figuratively speaking, of course. And it's this hovering on the threshold thing, because of what's going on up here, that I feel is really marking the energy of this present moment for you here. There's an active creation bit going on here with the energy of the Magician streaming into you right now, and really he is bound only by the limits of his own imagination on things, right? So if you've had your consciousness cranked wide open, which is how it feels to me, right, in terms of maybe even just seeing what's coming down the pike, right, and how you are supposed to respond to it, that's a lot of energy. That feels like a really big thing. And we've got the Three of Wands going, there's a single step that I need to take. I know what I need to be doing, but I'm kind of stuck in my own head about it, because what if I'm wrong? What if this is not right? What if I'm inventing all of these things? What if this is all just my imagination? If you take nothing away from this, Scorpio, today, what I want you to deeply understand is no part of what you have come to in your own head is your imagination, right? You have seen things, you are seeing what is coming, and you have a part to play in it. Now I want to pull out, I've got oh, that is exquisite. I just noticed that there was a card that shouldn't be in this deck here, and I pulled it out, and the spot that I pulled it out from was the Death card, and this randomly is the Tower of the Divine. Like, why is the Death card sitting in there on top of the Death card here? Double Death. Now, I made a point at the beginning of saying how interesting it was that you were not showing up in your own reading, and now you've shown up twice when we're nailing what the problem is here. Now I'm just going to pop this version of you over there. I'm going to pull out some more cards. So tell me about this. What's going on here? Thank you. The Magician and the Six of Wands. Oh, Scorpio, Scorpio, Scorpio. Could it be that you are not afraid of failure, but you're actually afraid of your own success here? You're actually afraid of your own levels of power. You're actually afraid of how powerful you are in being able to influence what comes next by the way that you participate in it. I think maybe that might be true. Now we have butterfly here. Butterflies are always symbols of transformation, right? So if it were not enough that we'd already had your card and the corresponding transformative energy that represents, we're now seeing it here too. But we're also seeing it in some way or another in the Ten of Swords. Now, although this is frankly a fucking brutal image, I mean, look at that. It's jarring. There is something about the Ten of Swords that I find really, really welcome, and specifically it's in the fact that it is a 10, so therefore represents an end. I taught a class on the negative cards of the tarot last month, I think, and I included almost the entire suit of swords because, as I said, I felt like the whole suit was like a lurch towards cognitive crisis again and again and again, because this is how we change the way that we think, right? So when we arrive at the Ten of Swords, we have an idea that what we think has changed so fundamentally, we really can't hold on to that cycle of thought anymore, right? It's changing into something else, it's morphing, it's evolving. Because the tarot is cycles within cycles, right? So when we hit that 10, we don't just have the energy switching off. It moves then to the ace. We have this, big epiphany moment where we're seeing the world in a very, very different way to the way that we saw it before. Maybe because of this lurching around the cognitive crisis that I was talking about in terms of the rest of the suit, right? But we move directly on to the ace. And then we do a whole new cycle, and that's a whole new lurch towards cognitive crisis, which will then inevitably end in the 10 and move on again. The whole point of which I'm saying here to you, Scorpio, is that there's a certain set of thoughts, there's a certain set of beliefs, there's a certain set of ways that you both perceive and process the universe and your part in it, your position in it rather, that is coming to an end because it is by definition limiting. I mean, all beliefs are limiting. But we switch out one set for another when we go through the process of breaking down why we think what we do. Now, we know that you've been stuck in your head just a little bit, maybe feeling a little bit stuck by perhaps your own fear, just a little bit. But we also know that we are lurching towards the end of that particular cognitive cycle, which is going to be replaced by something ace and shiny, right? Definitely of initiation. We can say that the Magician is as much about initiation as the aces are. I know that's often a role that's given to the Fool, and that's true. But it's that it's the almost like the unconscious energy of the Fool is being switched out for the very conscious energy of the Magician. Very active, very masculine, very focused on the do, and very focused on integrating all of the energies of the elements in what it is that they're doing. Like I said, swords, pentacles, cups, wands, whatever, right? If anything, I feel like the biggest struggle for you is trying to contain all of this power, all of this energy. You feel to me like you're trying to hold back the tides of it until you are feeling like you are comfortable in using it, hence the hesitating at the threshold. And whether that's an element of self-doubt, I'm not sure. Whether it's the fear of being seen, I think that's probably very, very likely. Whether it's the fear of success. Because I don't think that you fear failure, Scorpio. I think there's probably a litany of failures in your past, right? As there should be for anybody who's led any kind of interesting life at all. I think that's something that you actually find easier to bear than the fact of the matter. Oh, be very careful with my words here. It is the fact of the matter that there's something very shiny and very impressive that is now asking to work through you because you are worthy. And I think there's a little bit of fear about what that might look like. Because why? Because then when you look back at your life and all of the ways in which you have struggled and all of the ways in which you have suffered, it actually has meaning. All of the ways in which you have struggled and suffered over the course of your life, it's a familiar feeling, right? You know where you are with that. It's the comfort of the darkness, right? You're being asked to come out into the light in a way that nobody can miss. So you lose the cover of the safety of darkness, of the shadows. And you bear what you are bearing then becomes obvious for everyone else to see. I mean, there's a massive issue with vulnerability here, right? There's always been a massive issue with vulnerability where Scorpio is concerned, right? But it's coming right out, right? Even in the sun here. So I look at the background of all of these cards. Even let's throw the Ace of Wands in there as well, because there's got a similar kind of vibe going on. We're seeing that same imagery again and again and again. And it's like, here it is, hit you like a train. And now you're like, fuck, I've got to do something with it. I don't want to do something with it because it means being illuminated by the very thing that I have now taken into myself. Which means everyone in a 30-mile radius is going to be able to see me coming. There's issues of faith. There's issues of trust in yourself. But there's a whole freight train of meaning as well to your past experiences. And it could be that that's the thing that's overwhelming, because now you're having to reprocess everything that you've experienced in a different way. And this often happens when we have big shifts up in consciousness. We look back. This is why I say, in terms of shadow work and things like that, that is a coal seam that you will never run out of material to mine from, ever. Because we do, lots of personal work on ourselves, and we're like, oh, fuck, right, okay, big revelations, I've worked it out, moving forwards, I'm feeling much more emotionally regulated, I've made sense of a lot of things, right? And then, bam, there's the next level of consciousness shift that comes up, and you look back at the same situation, and you see things you could not see before. And that happens again and again and again. So you're at the point now where you can look back and you're like, oh God, if that really was a training ground. Now it feels different. It feels completely different to how it felt even maybe 6 months ago, to look back at all of these things. Yeah. So I've sometimes, told the story of somebody who said to me once, I said, I'm sick of fucking suffering, I'm sick of fucking struggling. And she said, oh no, your experiences have been sent to you so that you can be a guiding light to help others out of there. And I swear to God, I rolled my eyes so hard, I think I probably could see the inside of my head. I wasn't ready to hear it. And it was a good 6 months later, I was washing up in my sink like that. Hadn't thought about this for a long time. I just treated it as idle platitudes, you know. And suddenly it just hit me, and it did make sense. It's like I got it because I could get it now. Totally changed the way that I thought about everything I'd ever experienced in my life. And I was like, oh my God. So fear of visibility, fear of success, fear even of meaning, Scorpio. Like, what you've been through is so fucking profound. Like, I know a lot of Scorpios. I know a lot of Scorpio stories, and they are unified by one thing, and that is generally they're a lot more intense than most normal people would be able to bear. Something about being born under the sign of Scorpio, or even having, you know, major placements in Scorpio, that almost guarantees a certain kind of experience that you will have at least for the first part of your life. We're moving into the second part of your life where everything looks different. You yourself look differently. You are having to look at yourself in a different way. I think so, Scorpio. So when we come into October, then it makes perfect sense why this Nine of Swords should be showing up in the reverse, because some of the hesitation, some of the struggle that we've seen across these other cards here now, you're marshalling all of your energies and you are pushing through. We've got the Page of Cups there. That's quite a Scorpio Page of Cups. It doesn't have a strict astrological correspondence in the tarot. None of the pages do. And it's an energy that I've always associated with Pisces, right? Because it's so whimsical and there's just something incredibly Piscean about it, right? But we cannot look at that card and say, that's Pisces, like that's got Scorpio written all over it. If only for the fact that we have the octopus sitting in the cup. And the octopus has 8 tentacles. It is indeed an 8th house animal, if you will. Got the page dressed in black. He looks a little bit like Wednesday Addams, right? Not the new the new fashionable one, right? But the old version of Wednesday Addams, right? There's a darkness here. There are things to be investigated here. There's this weird sulfuric glow on the card. But we're on the first rung of a ladder that is taking us towards true emotional mastery. King of Cups, Scorpio energy. You're out of your comfort zone here, Scorpio. But I think you're here for it, because the Nine of Swords reversed. When we talk about that neutral energy of losing perspective in things, right? And we can see it coming up with fear, we can see it with all sorts of things, right? Where the mind takes over. The mind has definitely taken over here, right? That's what's been holding you in place, and that's okay, because you recognize that. Maybe you don't even recognize that. Maybe it is just the pure courage that's pushing you through here, right? Courage of your convictions, almost for sure. When the Nine of Swords shows up in its inverted state, we are putting everything in our head in the right place. We are no longer being held back by limiting beliefs or groundless fears, baseless fears. Now, I feel like Scorpio would have said a little while ago, it's not a baseless fear. It's not an ungrounded fear. When I am visible, when I am vulnerable, people attack. And I would get that. I have an 8th house stellium, right? I get it. But the way in which you've grown seems to have flipped your mindset around. Because you recognise the degree to which fear has been sitting at the bottom of all of that. And if we are to let that go, and we are to move on to the next stage of whatever is happening, whatever's going on, then it has to be visible. Right? We have to recognize that this is the first step in a journey that we are taking in a very, very new way of being, a new visible way of being. And unless we get all of our swords in a row in the right way, we are going to stand at the threshold forever, and we're going to look out there and not ever get off the fucking rock. Do you know what I mean, Scorpio? I'll just give these a quick shuffle. These in here. Tell me about this Nine of Swords. Yeah. It doesn't feel seamless. Scorpio, it doesn't feel seamless this month. It feels like there's plenty of opportunities for self-doubt to kick in. It feels like there's a lot of internal conflict going on with you. This is Saturn in Leo here, right? So we're talking about the work, the difficult stuff, whenever, Saturn's involved. The ways in which actually we have to kind of lock in and just get on with it, because, what we're trying to deal with doesn't reduce, it doesn't diminish if we sit there and watch it for a little bit, right? It's like, it is what it is, and it's always going to be like that, so we've just got to get on with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to enjoy that, though. Even the Nine of Swords being in the reverse doesn't mean you are actively enjoying what you are doing here. It just means that you have exerted enough discipline over your mind that you recognize where some of your fears, some of your hesitations are baseless, and we're going to have to push through them. And all of it revolving around this Queen of Wands. Now, the Queen of Wands for me is always distinctly about visibility. I want to make that really, really clear. She represents a sign of Aries, but I mean, even look at the imagery in the card. Like, this is a queen who is designed to be seen. The other queens, certainly the Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of Cups, aren't really that bothered about whether they're seen en masse or not. I feel like the Queen of Swords is, because she is seen to be doing the job that she is doing, right? To some extent, she's completely fucking oblivious to the audience, but she understands that they're there, and she understands that it's important that they see how she has worked through things, right? She takes her role very seriously, but so does the Queen of Wands. Now, this is not an attention hoe. It's not what the Queen of Wands is about. She understands that there is a magnetism, and the magnetism is very important to the way that she works. So she can speak to large groups of people. She can capture the attention of large groups of people at times when it is necessary to inspire, to lead, to teach, whatever it is. It's all about the magnetism here. Now, Scorpio, you have magnetism in droves. Like, you just bucket loads, fucking tractors with trailers with buckets of magnetism on the back of it for you, right? But the whole time that you've been resistant, I don't know, maybe you felt like part of your appeal was the fact that you didn't show it. Do you know what I mean? There was always that hidden side to you that some people found very enigmatic and very alluring. And like, if I lose that, then people see the real me, and I'm not really that magnetic, and I'm not really that interesting. I'm not really. Dispel all of those. These are not serious doubts, Scorpio. Let me assure you of that, because she can do her best work when everybody can see what she's doing. And if you think about everything that we've said today about the way that Scorpio is more comfortable in the shadows, is more comfortable unseen, if Machiavelli wasn't a Scorpio, then I don't know, right? Never the king, but the kingmaker, sitting behind the king, whispering in his ear, all that sort of stuff, right? The power of influence being more important, quiet influence being important. I think this is all changing for you, Scorpio, really, really strongly. And now there is the courage that you have to exert to put yourself in this place, which is the thing that people are seeing. It's like, if Scorpio can come out of the dark, if Scorpio can show everything that they are, if they can be vulnerable and they can share the wisdom that they hold, and you have so much wisdom when it comes to navigating your way through things that are breaking down, things that are collapsing, things that are dying, right? And transforming through that space again and again and again. Like, you are exactly the kind of teacher leader guide that the world needs right now. But that's no good to anyone if you are hidden in a place where they can't see you. It's a new emotional journey for you, because you have to adjust to seeing the world in a very different way and feeling your way through the world in a very different way, acting in a very different way, being seen in a very different way. Like, the universe wills it to be so, Scorpio. Like, that energy, that creative energy, the abundant energy that Scorpio actually provides for the rest of the zodiac by taking out what is no longer useful. Now, if you think about the zodiacal wheel, every one of the signs is performing a function, and yours is essential. If we don't clear things out, we can never make space for the new things, right? The spring would never arrive in any kind of meaningful sense without Scorpio overseeing the breakdown, the change of the seasons, all of these kind of things. But we're talking about trying to do it on a global level now. We're doing it with humanity. We're doing it with consciousness. It's time for you to step forward. That's it. That's what the cards are saying here. It's time for you to step forward. You've had a few runs up at it over the last 2 years, and each time there was a period of adjustment, but you were okay. Now we're going big. That's what this is saying here. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you're opening your own, mystery school or something like that. It could simply be the willingness that you have to talk to people about how you feel about things, talk to people about how they feel about things. But remember that this is a reciprocal, should be a reciprocal situation. I'm coming back to the big connection card over here, but also authenticity and vulnerability. Like, you have to give as much as you receive here, Scorpio. And people, it feels to me, are going to be kind of flocking to get your perspective on things this month. I don't know what it is about this month specifically that it seems to be activating you in this way. But this is what it is. So I'm going to go to the extended now. You're very welcome to join me if you would like to do so. You can do that on Selfie, you can do that on Circle. I'd be delighted to see you in either place. If that's not your thing, that's absolutely fine. Just know that this month is going to be big, and I feel like there's going to be opportunities that are put in front of you over and over and over again to step into this role. And remember what I said, right? That the longer you stand at the threshold, it's making no difference at all to what it is that you have to do, but it will enable all the doubt and all those kind of things to hold you there for longer. It's like, just do it. What was his name? Shia LaBeouf. Just do it. Right, just get out there. Do it. Because I think everybody else needs you to do it this month. I don't know why, but there we are. So, I'm going to leave it there. Know that I love you all very, very much. I'll see you soon.